Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin on Rugby preview show. Join me to look ahead to Friday night's big interpro in Limerick. Is the owner-operator of the great blog PostToPost Sport, here making his 27th pod appearance to go the host of written contributions to our own blog over the years. Welcome back to Mr. Ciarán Duffy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this festive period. I'm pushing 200, so hopefully, maybe by the end of the season, maybe I was thinking by the end of next year, but maybe by the end of the season, 200 harping on contributions. So, I'm thinking of making a Chasing the Sun style documentary on my search to get there.
That's it. Netflix will already be sniffing around for a piece of that. Okay, well, first, before we get on to the match, first your quick thoughts on the win over Connacht last weekend.
Now, listen, I think Connacht were really up for the game, as we knew they would be, and that's a good thing because in the past, not so much in interpros, but there was a period before the URC when it was the Pro 12 slash Pro 14 where teams would go to Leinster and they might kind of put in a good 10-minute spell here and there throughout the match, but really they would fold. They'd say, right, we're not going to win this one. Connacht were very up for that game. They defended quite well. I think Leinster deservedly went in ahead at half time because we were playing all the attacking rugby. But in fairness, didn't really take our chances, and that's something that's been a bit of a theme this season. Maybe the attack just not being as clinical. One thing I've talked about this season a lot is we haven't put in a kind of 80-minute performance. We haven't put in a complete clinical performance. And look, you're not going to be good for literally every second of the 80 minutes. The other team's going to have a purple patch. But in the second half, Connacht were the better side. Probably, to be honest, unlucky not to get at least, definitely unlucky not to get at least the losing balls point out of the game, but probably unlucky not to get a draw or even potentially to win because they were the better side in the second half.
Absolutely. Okay, well, now it's time to look at our feature match of the week, which is, of course, Munster v Leinster in round 9 of the 24-25 United Rugby Championship. This game is taking place at Thomond Park on Friday, December 27th, kicking off at 7:35 p.m. TV coverage is on TG Cahir, Premier Sports 2, and URC.tv. Leinster named their matchday squad at lunchtime on Stephen's Day. If you're watching on YouTube, you should see it right there on the screen, or for pod listeners, it's in the program notes. Now, Ciarán has picked out a couple of points coming from the Leinster team, starting with the halfback pairings.
Yeah, so Sam starts alongside Luke McGrath, Ross Byrne on the bench, Gunn the backup scrum half. I don't know where Cormac Foley is. I don't know if you're privy to any information. As far as I know, he's not injured. So look, you never
No,
know. There
he's
could
not
be
on
a
the injury list anyway.
yeah, there
That
could be
doesn't
a
mean he's not
personal.
injured, though.
Yeah, that's true. And there could be a personal reason. We don't know that. I don't want to
Mm.
speculate, but for me, he would be a player I'd like to see more of. But Gunn's getting a chance to play backup. One frustration we've had a lot on this show is when it comes to the halfback pairings. Kieran Frawley plays at 10, Sam Prendergast plays at 10, Jemison Gibson Park plays at 9. Things are nice and fast, nice and quick. Suddenly, when Luke McGrath and Ross Byrne are there, it's not so much. Now, I will say this. I mentioned Ross Byrne, they're already getting the winning points. I feel like he played, I think Keego made the point in the WhatsApp group. He looked angry when he was playing. He looked like he had a point to prove, and he definitely did. And, like, players probably aren't scrolling through Twitter or Blue Sky or Instagram, but he probably is hearing all the noise that, Sam Prendergast, Kieran Frawley might be usurping him. So he looked like he played with a point to prove. I actually think he did pretty well when he came on. You never know if that's going to have an effect on Sam necessarily. Sam's still very young. He reads the game quite well. He has that playmaker instinct, but yeah, I just I wouldn't be sure how that's going to play out. Big chance for Gunn as well because I think there is one of the lads. There was a conversation going on in WhatsApp saying that Jemison Gibson Park. Look, he's played a lot of minutes. He hasn't been great so far this season, and you're probably thinking in 2 years' time, he might be thinking maybe go make some money in France or something, go make some money somewhere else, maybe wrap up with Ireland. That might be, or certainly he might not be Ireland's starting scrum half in 2 seasons' time. But I think that's a really interesting dynamic. Just Sam, I'd imagine he'll play well. He has a point to prove, but then Ross comes on. And he's like, "Well, don't forget about me either," and he'll want to be in that Six Nations squad as well. He'll want to be there. So I think that's just a really interesting dynamic, and it's something Leinster do need that bit of depth at scrum half beyond Jamison Gibson Park starting and then Luke McGrath coming on. The rest of this season, I think, is a chance for not for just out halves in general to kind of put their hand up and say, "Look, I should be playing for Ireland. I should be starting for my province. I should be the main man going forward."
Yeah, Absolutely. Yeah, definitely some interesting halfback pairings there. I mean, overall, it's an interesting lineup. I think it's one of the strongest teams we sent down to Thomond, which is mad when you consider we're actually leaving out Jordy Barrett, we're leaving out RG Snyman. But still, we're often disappointed with selections at this time of year. But there's a lot of players coming back as well. It's great to see Tommy O'Brien back. Try saving Tommy back. We just desperate for him to have a run of games with that injury, because I really think if he didn't have all those injuries, he'd have some Ireland caps by now. Jamie Osborne back as well, going back to fullback. So keeping Jimmy O'Brien on the wing, we've got Ringrose and Henshaw in the center, a very strong back line overall, and with Sam pulling the strings. Okay, your second point is about something very important for Leinster. It's our lineouts.
Yeah, it's all been a bit grim from the line out point of view. Wasn't great for Ireland either, and I would point out that the hookers playing for Ireland were the Leinster hookers as well. So Dan Sheehan's obviously missing. Look, Dan Sheehan's he's not the kind of player you could replace easily. He's we talk about hookers in the Dan Sheehan mode. Dan Sheehan's the best hooker in the Dan Sheehan mold. But Ronan Kelleher, it just hasn't really been happening for him so far this season. I think you have to add a little caveat there. He was injured for a long time. I think it was the game against Argentina was his first game back after injury, so he kind of only really had those three interpros. Gus McCarty as well has a really he's not in the squad, but he's nearly usurped Kelleher now as number two. You'd be thinking if the European Cup final was tomorrow and Leinster were in it, or a URC playoff or something, and everyone was fit, you'd be thinking you'd nearly go Dan Sheehan, Gus McCarty. But Kelleher, it just hasn't been happening. Not just at lineouts, but around the pitch anyway. It just hasn't been happening as much. I don't know what's going on at the lineout, and I don't know, are we trying to do something but it's not coming off, or do we just not have any ideas at the moment? You'd be thinking, you have James Ryan, you have Joe McCarty, you have when Snyman's playing, you nearly think just stick Snyman at the front and throw it to him, and at this stage just stop trying to make a contest out of it. But it's been particularly poor. And the set piece, we know the set piece is important, but it's been particularly poor this season.
Yeah, it's very important for Leinster. I mean, we really need to be winning about 70-80% of our own ball, and it just hasn't been happening. What happens is you get the other teams, teams are going to be looking for any way to get at Leinster, and they know that if they can just challenge our lineouts from the word go, disrupt them, cut off that supply, they'll keep it a contest going late in the matches. And we've been lucky that we finished on top the last couple of weeks. But when we get to the business end of the season, if it's still going on, that won't happen. So the Munster will definitely be looking at that for sure. Okay, well now it's time to have a quick look at that Munster lineup. I think it's safe to say that they've had a mixed season so far with 4 wins and 4 losses in the URC and 1 win and 1 loss in Europe. Their most recent result was, of course, that win in the Kingspan last weekend. What do you think of their lineup, Ciarán?
I think I think the thing about Munster, you can't really avoid talking about the injuries. I mean, they're missing Peter O'Mahony, whatever about him, maybe not starting for Ireland anymore. He's still a very important player for Munster, and notably Jack Crowley missing. I think it's a shame we didn't get to see that kind of Sam versus Jack. That would have been an interesting one. Maybe it's for the best that we don't have to worry about that, because there's always enough talk when Leinster and Munster play each other. But yeah, look, it's obviously a fairly rotated lineup. It's just they've had so many injuries. They probably would like to start a stronger lineup, but look, Munster are going to be really up for this game. One thing I'd say about Munster is Tom Farrell was excellent against Ulster, and he won that game for them. I mean, Ulster probably didn't get some of the calls they maybe should have. Obviously, the red card was a red card, but you could argue Munster should have had another yellow in there. And then Ulster just seemed to fall apart at times in defence. But the thing about Munster is they score a lot of points. I was looking through their results there. They lose to Zebra, but they score, I think, 33 points. They lost the 2 games in South Africa, but they scored plenty of points in both those games. And they lost to Leinster and Croke Park. They scored, I think, 2 tries. So like they are scoring points. It seems to be their offense that's the bit of the issue. But Tom Farrell, I think, is going to be a really important um, outlet for them. He's just that good kind of rampaging center that's kind of hard to stop. He probably gives defenses a headache. I mean, if you have a center who can kind of run through a few players, then suddenly your defensive line is broken and you're left scrambling, and then that means there's space elsewhere. If if you're looking for a man to look out for Munster, Tom Farrell would be my choice.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame, like you say, we're not gonna get Crowley v Prendergast. Another one would have been interesting to see Nankerville and Barrett on the pitch at the same time. But yeah, you're right. Farrell has been key for them at 13, and I think key for Leinster going up against them is to have maybe keep Ringrose and Henshaw at 12 and 13 for 80 minutes. I think if we can manage that, I think it's going to be really good for to anchor our defense. And we picked Larmer as our 23, which kind of indicates that we might want 80 out of our two centers. Obviously, if there's injuries, you'll be talking Jamie Osborne moving over, but that's going to really affect the rhythm and the flow of the back line. But we'll see what happens there. But it's not their ideal lineup. They do have a lot of injury issues, of course, down in Munster, but they could definitely compete, like they say, if they can get after our set piece early on. Now, of course, our scrum has been going well. That is one good thing. If we can keep that up, Slimani starting, if he can get, if he can lock down the scrums, that could be a key issue as well. Okay, for a quick look at the officials, we have for once we actually have a neutral kind of ref. Sam Grove White from Scotland is holding the whistle. There's Irish assistants and Mike Adamson in the TMO booth. The weather for Limerick looks promising. It looks like it's going to be mild, cloudy, not much wind, only 25% chance of rain, so that's looking good. Now it's time to have a quick look at the other URC matches this weekend. I suppose the main highlight there is the other Interpro Connacht v Ulster on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean the other Irish Shield game, but yeah, Connacht and Ulster. I think again it would probably mean a lot to either of them if they did win an Irish Shield because just they haven't won something in a long time. Ulster, in particularly, haven't won something in a long time. It's nearly 10 years since Connacht won the league now, but they both will go into that game feeling like they probably should have got more out of their last match. I feel like Ulster they probably just didn't have that bit of luck. They probably didn't get a few calls against Munster. The red card was a red card. That's the way, that's the laws of the game. It was a red card. They played well at times, just couldn't seem to get through the defense. There was another yellow card there for Munster probably at some stage, but then they'll be disappointed in how twice when they scored a try they instantly conceded one, and that's just switching off. That's just not really. That's not even being down to 14. That's just switching off. No, to be honest, that might actually be the more exciting game because it might be two less kind of cagey teams, two teams going for it a little bit more. But I think both teams will feel like they should have got more out of that game. I think Connacht have been decent this season at times. They probably suffered from the 6-2 split last week because they ended up getting injuries in their backs and kind of had to have a bit of a reshuffle. Ulster, again, it's in danger of slipping away from them a little bit. Maybe the URC, and it would be a bit of a disaster if they didn't qualify for the Champions Cup and get into the playoffs. But there's probably only one place in the playoffs between Connacht and Ulster on offer. I don't necessarily know if they'll both make it. So this is actually a really big game. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who I'd call winning it. I think both sides should have probably got more out of their last game. So I think that's actually going to be a really interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, there's derby matches all throughout the round as well. The 1872 Cup be decided, and all the other South African, Welsh, and Italian. But there's one game, the Bulls against the Lions, which isn't taking part until February in this round. That's just one little thing there. Okay, so listen, there's also just a reminder. There's the Celtic Challenge as well. Goes into round 2 this weekend. The Clovers, it's the All Irish Derby, the return of the match from last week. Clovers are playing the Wolfhounds at UCD Bowl at 12 o'clock on Saturday. Okay, so it's head on the block time. How do you see it going at Thomond on Friday?
I mean, I'm always going to predict the Leinster win, regardless of who we're playing. Whether it's a fourth European Cup final in a row, or whether it's an Interpro, or whether it's any other URC game. I don't think it's going to be I think the bookies have Leinster a decent bit ahead, but I don't think it's going to be that comprehensive. I think there's the Thomond Park factor. I mean, Munster are always going to be up for playing Leinster in Thomond Park. I don't see it being maybe a two-score game, but not a resounding victory. Maybe kind of like maybe a bit like last week, kind of 8 points or so win for Leinster. I don't think it's going to be an easy win at all. I think Munster are going to be able to get through the defence. What I would like to see from Leinster is I think we need a comprehensive performance. I'm glad to see the lineup because I think we need to play a strong lineup. You're never going to be on top for 80 minutes in a game of rugby if you're playing a team that's at a similar level. But I think we need to kind of put a team to the sword a little bit. I think we kind of need to click into gear. This is the time to do it because there's a bit of a break between the next European games, and then we're nearly into the Six Nations. Probably won't have the main players back. Then a South African tour, so we might not see kind of too strong of a URC team until from the Stormers game in January. We might not see too strong of a URC lineup again until kind of the end of April. So I hope we put on a good display. I do think Leinster will win it. I think we need to do more than win it. I think we can't kind of just squeak past them. I think it can't be. Last year's Interpro was a bit of a slog. It was Leinster with a better team, but I think it finished like 9-3 or something. I think it'll be a higher scoring one. I think Munster are going to get a couple of tries, but I think it'll be 4 points for Leinster. I don't necessarily think we're going to get a bonus point win, but I think maybe a score and a bit ahead, maybe a 8 or 9 point win, I'd say.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, we're going to leave it there, man. Many thanks for joining us, and all going well. We'll have you back on Sunday to see how your prediction held up because you're on our wrap pod as well. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm not used to being called upon twice in 1 week, so I'm ready to go on Sunday as well. But thanks for having me on.
No problem. And many thanks to you all for checking out our latest preview show. Be sure to enjoy the match wherever you are. Leave a comment on our Facebook page after the full-time whistle. We will, of course, have that wrap pod for you recording on Sunday evening. Hopefully, you'll help us out by liking, sharing, and subscribing. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.